petty cash. We should take her out to dinner. We don't want to lose her.
This magnificent feast here represents the last of the petty cash.
Slow down. Chew your food.
Hello, listeners. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever and whenever you're listening from. This is the Petty Cash Podcast, which, as you all know, this podcast represents the last of the Petty Cash. I am your host for the week, Danny, and joining me, as always, are my usual co-hosts, Sabrina, Vinny, Joe, and Charles. But today is a very special episode. Today, well, technically, yesterday, was the 69th anniversary of cinema's infamous King of the Monsters, Godzilla. So once again, we have brought on a very special guest for this episode. Joining us today is independent filmmaker and production assistant on 2016 Shin Godzilla, Yoko Higuchi. Yoko, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be with you guys today.
Yeah, I have met Yoko back in the dark times of 2020 when all we could all do was just jump online and try and keep everyone's sanity from floating into darkness. And through the many After Dark streams of monstrosities, that's where me and Yoko met for the first time. And plus, this year is also Sabrina's first Godzilla episode. So technically, welcome, Sabrina. So, before we get started, how's y'all's week been? Charles, we'll start with you.
It's been insanity. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm glad that it finally started easing. Yeah, I'm glad it started easing up, but work has been super busy with releases, and I'm just glad it's the weekend.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. Joe, what about you?
No, man. I mean, everything's been going good. Just recently, I just got my level 1 certified feeder certification for Tabamida Balintawak. So congratulations.
Wow.
I am happy. So the equivalent to a black belt almost. Been working on about almost 6 years. So to get
Wow.
it. So
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
Jenny, you two.
Has it been a week? Has it been a month? Where have we been?
Well, it's been quite a month since we last recorded.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Because
Yeah.
this week just flew by with the weekend because we had a Halloween party over the weekend and then Halloween popped up and it was just poof, gone. And now we're into Thanksgiving and Christmas season, which, you know me, I love my Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good God, yes.
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh, my gosh.
Yoko, how's your week been?
Good. Very busy, obviously. Halloween was mentioned, so obviously that was big. And then obviously the lead up to Godzilla Day, and then Godzilla 2000 in theaters on November 1st. That was big. So pretty good week. Busy though.
Yeah. For me, work flew by this week. It was Monday, then I blinked it was Thursday. Monday was October, I blinked Thursday was November. It's insane how quickly this year has flown by, especially these last few months.
That's what happens when you're having fun.
Very true. But enough of the side chit chat. It's time to get into the meat and potatoes once again for this year's episode.
But no, we have one more.
Oh yes. So since last recording, since previous episode, me and Sabrina got engaged.
Yay.
Got you guys.
We said yay.
So yeah, come October 6th next year, we will no longer be engaged. We'll be husband and wife. All right, so main part of the episode today. This year is the 69th anniversary of the King of the Monsters himself, Godzilla. And Toho really decided to go out in a big way this year by not only releasing 2000 on its anniversary screening on Wednesday, but yesterday, Godzilla -1 released in Japanese theaters. And come December 1st, it'll release nationwide here in the States, and we already have our tickets.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I saw Yoko, you got your tickets already, right?
Yeah, I got my tickets for the early access screening in IMAX at the Lincoln Square Theater, which is I think the third biggest theater in the world.
Whoa.
Wow.
Did not know that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Badass.
it's also the biggest theater on the East Coast. So I'm very excited to see Godzilla minus one there, and then I'm seeing it the next day on its opening night.
Sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, we have our tickets for the fan screening, and if we like it enough, maybe we'll see it again on opening day.
Yeah.
But early buzz from the Japanese moviegoers is it's already great, and of course, our friends Matt and Derek from Monstrosities and D-Man have already traveled to Japan to go see the movie. So
Jealous.
so jealous. I know.
So
I asked you
jealous.
early this year if you were going. You're like, yeah, I can't risk the time off.
Yeah, I would have loved to have gone.
Well, I will start this episode off similarly how we did last year. Since we have our two guests, I will ask you the same questions that we did last year. I'll start with Sabrina. What was your introduction and experience with the franchise?
My introduction, which I feel like is really a late introduction, but with Godzilla 2014.
The beginning of the MonsterVerse.
Yeah, I saw all the legendaries in theaters, but hence why I say late, because like it was 2014, so I feel like I'm like late introduced to Godzilla.
Fair. Yoko, your first experience and introduction with the franchise.
So I was in Japan with my late grandmother in the countryside where my dad's side grew up, and I think I was like maybe like 2 at max 3 years old, and I was walking in this shop with my grandma and my dad, and I saw this toy that really struck me. It was a golden three-headed dragon-looking creature,
Nice.
and I just didn't know what it was or like who it was. Like, and I was very like taken aback by it. Like even as a kid, I like was just awestruck by it, and it so happened to be the Grand King Ghidorah from Mothra 3.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and then I have no recollection of this. So like my parents and my grandma had told me the story, but apparently I just stood there at the store and I didn't move. Like I was just so captivated by this toy. And then my grandmother told my dad, "We have to buy this for him, or else he's not going to move." So lo and behold, she buys me this toy, and it's like it was like massive. Like as a kid, like it was like half my size.
Oh.
And I bought it, or rather, they bought it for me. And then my dad goes, "Well, this monster is in a movie. Why don't I show him what this is like in reference to?" So I think like the same week he goes to the video rental store, and then he rents Ghidra, the three-headed monster, and that was my first Godzilla film. And then after that, my allegiances shifted when Godzilla ends up beating Ghidra in the end. So yeah, that's where my journey started.
Interesting. And it was a Grand King Ghidorah figure from the third Mothra movie, not even just a generic Ghidorah figure from the Godzilla
Yeah,
franchise.
it was exactly. It was specifically the Grand King Ghidorah. That was the first kaiju that I laid my eyes on.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, the Mothra trilogy is a fun one. I'll say that. It may not be great, but it's a fun one. But
It's definitely fun. Yeah.
yeah, I'll have to show you that sometime in the future.
Yeah, I really want to watch it.
And then, of course, for this one, I'll start with Yoko. Yoko, what is your favorite film in the franchise?
So I'm not gonna say the first one because I think that's pretty much a given. So, God, I'm so biased, but it is gonna be Shin Godzilla. I think.
I figured as much.
And, I wonder why that is.
Yeah, that's the interesting reason why you would like that one specifically.
Yeah, hot take. It's a very hot take, isn't it? But I really, even though I did work on it, I thought it was the closest thing that I've seen so far to what Honda envisioned for Godzilla in terms of like the tone, the message, and how scary Godzilla is, how imposing he is, and then just the political dialogue of like all of the politicians like talking is such an interesting kind of turn for a Godzilla movie. So that would probably be my favorite besides the first one.
Gotcha. Now, Sabrina, for the last, I want to say 3 months, I had been showing you the entirety of the franchise. So let me grab your list.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so
Yeah, yeah, Yoko, we legit started on July 4th.
Oh, jeez. That's, you know what? That rocks. That rocks.
all right. So why don't you list off your top 5?
Okay, so my first one is a GMK. Yeah, that is my.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I was watching that last night.
Hey, yeah, no, I love GMK for the monsters, the special effects, the music. Yeah.
Is it because Danny told you that's his favorite?
Yes.
We'll put that on the air.
No, I kept it in mind, but like, no, I didn't fully decide on it was my favorite because of him. No.
I'm gonna push a button to doubt on this here. I'll have to rig one up.
All right, your number 2
My number 2 is King of the Monsters.
from 2019.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, rewatching, I was like, yeah, I still love this one. It's still such a fun movie for a Godzilla fan specifically.
Yeah, I was also watching that last night as well.
Hey.
I was on a binge last night, and yeah, that still rocks. I know some people don't like it, but I'm sorry, that movie rocks.
Yeah, it does. All right, your number 3.
My number 3 is Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, that one's a fun
Ooh.
one. It was nice seeing a pseudo remake of the '62 film on the big screen, with of course the inclusion of Mechagodzilla now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 4.
Destroy All Monsters. I love that one so much.
Yeah.
Which was originally supposed to be the last Godzilla movie until it made a lot of money. They're like, oh, let's make more. All right, and your 5th?
It's Destroya.
Yes.
I can't tell you
100%.
when we finished watching that. She's like, I want to give it a 4. It's like, no, it's a 5.
Still got a 4.
Yeah.
She's entitled to her opinion.
No, but I'm glad
I still put it up there. It's my top 5.
I'm glad you really like that one. I was gonna be concerned if you didn't like it. All right, now we go from your top 5 to your bottom 5. So your number 5 would be that one at the bottom.
What's the full? You can't see the full title. Okay. City on the Edge of Battle.
The second anime film.
Yeah.
Those movies are okay. I don't hate them, but they're okay. All right, your number 4. Top one.
Planet Eater.
The final anime trilogy movie. I respect that they try to do something different with that anime trilogy, but I feel like, Yoko, were you a fan of the anime trilogy?
It took some. I wasn't a fan of it initially. With Planet of the Monsters, I was like, okay, I guess the ending rocks, but the first like hour 30, I was like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what's happening? But I actually really like Planet Eater for some reason. It was very like religious and like strange, and I was like, huh. I don't know if this is good, but I really respect it, and I think I like it because it's just like weird.
Fair. Joe,
Alright.
have you seen the trilogy on Netflix for the Godzilla movies?
Nope.
So you're like most fans, like, oh, it exists.
Yeah. I'll wait for the live action ones, that's all.
Fair. All right, your number 3,
Planet of the Monsters.
first anime one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
All right, your second worst movie.
Godzilla's Revenge. I'm so sorry.
That's
No,
with
that one is that's rough. That one's rough.
yeah. The thing she hated most was we watched the English version specifically because the Japanese version with that ear-splitting theme song. I was like, no, I'm not submitting you to that. So in that one, she heard Minya talking like Barney.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it. I'm like, why is Barney in Godzilla?
Didn't he say like, "Oh, Godzilla says I have to fight my own
Battles, you know.
Like what?
I mean, Barney's just a kid-friendly version of Godzilla, so.
Essentially. All right, and your least favorite film.
98.
Wow, really interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, I had not watched it probably in a good decade before we rewatched it for the reviews. I'm like, yeah, this dialogue is awful.
Ugh.
Still my favorite.
I'm so sorry,
True,
Vinny.
yeah, so
I'm sorry.
Vinny's uncle, Richard Wessner, was one of the detail painters on this movie.
So my uncle,
Wow.
my uncle, he actually did the detail paint work on the skin for the Godzilla head, the babies, and the eggs. And when he was working on set, he actually asked them, "Is there any way we can keep one of the props?" And they're like, "No, they all have to be destroyed." And he was just like, "Fuck that shit." And he kept 3 of the Godzilla baby eggs.
Oh,
Wow. Oh
Yeah.
those things are
my
huge.
God.
He took there's small model versions of them, and then there's the huge ones. He kept 3 of the small models.
Oh.
Okay.
So
Oh, dang.
But that's
And-
still really
That's
cool.
awesome.
yeah. What's crazy though is we were at the Sony Lot Studio tour last year, and they actually had one of the baby Godzilla legs there on display. So seeing
And
his,
one of the heads.
yeah, unfortunately the head didn't have any of the skin, but the leg still had the skin details. So I was actually able to look at my uncle's work in person, which was incredible. And there's a photo of him with his buddy right next to the Godzilla head.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, that was actually my first introduction to Godzilla. That was my first time, and I hold that one near and dear to me.
It's hard to say like, oh, what kind of work was put into that movie when clearly a lot of hard work was put into at least the designing of the monster, whether or not people like it. One of the fans that don't like it. I will say the series that came out of the movie, far better than the movie.
I think that's what most of the G fans kind of agree on is like at least 98 gave birth to Godzilla the series, which like is pretty like awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you that somewhere down the line.
Okay.
And that's the thing for a lot of movies too, is that a lot of movies that are more directed towards audiences that are adults end up becoming kids products. So when they created the Godzilla movie, I don't think they actually had plans to make the series, but when they did and it caught on, it was just like, hey, we finally got to see, animated kaiju fights, the new design of Godzilla, and honestly, I still really favor that design. Just the look of it is very unique.
I mean, the series design is is basically like 90% similar to the movie's design, but the show design is a little unique. It's like the coloration, it actually breathes atomic breath instead of like blowing hot
like
air
green.
that explodes.
I mean, they do explain it was like the last surviving baby, and they kept it under government wrap up so they can train it to become one of its own fighting weapons. And basically, it took on what the movie started and continued it into a series, and I give it full props for that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and I know when the movie was coming out, they were planning a trilogy. That did not happen. However, I feel like the series did take some concepts from the script / stories they were going to use in the movie, because I know there's one concept from the banded scripts that they reused in the show. I want to say in the sequel they were supposed to go to like Egypt or something, and they very much go to Egypt in the show and fight a giant sphinx, which is easily one of the best episodes of the show. Now, before we move on to a really cool part of this episode, I have a little show and tell. I remember, Vinny, you like to say Godzilla is your cousin, correct?
Pretty much. I would say that version of Godzilla is my cousin. So, since my uncle did design him and work on him, it's kind of like family heirloom, I guess. I don't know. But it's kind of like, yeah, this is family shit right here.
You have connections to a Godzilla.
One of them, yes. It's still Godzilla, whether you like it or not.
Fair. Well, I have connections to the OG. Give me 1 second.
Someone's flexing their muscles here.
I was gonna say what muscles?
This contest is over. And the $10,000.
God.
Okay. All right. What you got, man?
So I told Sabrina the story of this last night. So back when I was going to graduate from high school, I received a graduation present from my uncle, Mark, whose work you are familiar with, Charles.
Yes.
He somehow got his hands on an autograph from Haruo Nakajima, the first suit actor for Godzilla.
Wow.
Whoa.
Very cool.
Nice.
Wow, that's cool.
I wish I could have met the man when he was still alive. He was supposed to come to a Mad Monster here back in either 2016 or 2017. Unfortunately, had to cancel due to his health, and then a few months later he passed away. So while I may have never got to meet the man, I at least
That's so
I have
cool.
something
That
from
is
him.
really cool. I mean, that's like the equivalent of, Billy Bryan with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like getting to... Yeah, it's like when you get to meet like the original suit actors, the ones who were sweating away in those like stuffy confined suits, to
Those
bring...
few 100-pound suits.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, I would know. I paraded around as the Thing for the Arizona Avengers.
That's true, yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. You get a taste of what they were all going through.
Exactly.
And then
I chose it.
True. And then, while Haruo Nakajima could not make it out that year, the replacement they got for him, I would say, was a fair replacement. They brought out Totsumo Kitagawa, the Millennium Suit actor for Godzilla. And he also signed a few things for me as well.
Oh, okay. You'll have to send some pictures to
Yes, yeah, Yoko, I'll send you some of these pictures so you can see these.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Which,
The silver Sharpie or the paint pen really
Yeah, it
pops.
Oh yeah.
Really pops.
Which I will say, that was fun watching 2000, the Japanese version specifically, on the big screen.
Yeah.
Since the only time it was ever here in theaters in America was the American version back in 2000.
I'll never forget that.
Did you see it in theaters when it came out?
Yeah, when I was a kid, back in California.
Oh.
I knew it had nothing to do with the 98, but it was like, oh, this is the real Godzilla here. Fucking Orga was awesome.
Godzilla.
I will say, rewatching, because for our marathon, I showed you the American version.
Yeah.
And you gave that one a solid 4 out of 5, which I was shocked by.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Now, watching the Japanese version on the big screen, as much of a treat that was, I was bored.
Yeah, I was too.
Yoko, are you a fan of either version, or do you have a preference?
So interestingly enough, I like the Japanese one. I think also because I understand the language, it's like easier for me.
fair.
The American one tends to as we all know camp it up.
Oh, yeah.
And say stuff that
Yeah.
is not what they say, and I'm like, that's not what that person said. That person said this, and I think my perspective was always it was very hard for me as someone who knows the language to watch the dubs. It was very ear piercing for me. 'Cause I was
Interesting.
that's not what that person said. I don't know how they got there. So I've always liked the Japanese one because it was also yes, I did feel the length at times, but it does have this ethereal, mysterious feeling to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with some of the scenes with Orga, especially near the
Yeah.
end, with them trying to collect all the data from Earth and...
Yeah, and they cut out my favorite scene, I think, in the English dub, where they cut out the scene where the Millennium, I guess, alien pre-Orga shows up on takes controls of all the computer screens and shows Dominion, Kingdom.
Yes, yeah, that's not in the American version.
Yeah, and that's my favorite scene outside of the ending in the Japanese dub, and I was like, I don't know how you would cut the scene. So there are little things in the Japanese version that I really respect, and it's also a very different Godzilla movie. In the lexicon of this 70-year series, there really isn't anything like Godzilla 2000 in terms of its tone and the way it's told. It's really weird. It's a very weird
Yeah.
movie, and I think the American version kind of waters it down to make it more palatable to what a Godzilla movie should be. And I understand that reasoning because I think it even though I prefer the Japanese version, I can objectively kind of say that the American dub is more for lack of a better term, like mainstream.
Mm.
Like it's a
Okay.
lot more clear cut. It's a lot more simple. It's more straight to the point. It's comedic. It's got like the epic, like bigger score.
Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I appreciate all those things, and I get why that is a bit more popular. But I tend to like the weirder aspects of the original version. So I was like, yes, I was very happy that the original dub came back, because if it was the American one, I probably wouldn't have gone to see it. But because it was the Japanese one, I was like, oh, I need to be there for that.
I mean, regardless for me, Japanese or English dub, I would have gone and seen either,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what version they were showing.
Yeah.
All right, so last thing I'll show off for today is this was back in the height of 2020 when I guess like online meet and greets were a small thing. The Cool Water Productions, a acting agency that I've worked with previously in a assistant capacity, they put on an online panel of the motion capture artists for Godzilla King of the Monsters. So we had the motion capture artists for Godzilla and the three heads of Ghidorah. And they thankfully had a thing where you can send in to get something signed, and I had all four of them sign this print for me.
Oh, cool.
I do wish they didn't use fan art. They used I wish they used an official picture from the film, but this is still really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it has pictures of all four of them signing it.
Oh, nice. Nice.
That's cool.
All right, so let us now get to one of the more interesting parts of this episode. Yoko, as I introduced you, you were a production assistant on the 2016 Shin Godzilla. How did you land that job?
I love telling this story because everyone kind of is in like disbelief when I say it, and I don't blame them, because it is kind of a miraculous sort of like event that I didn't even think would happen. So back in 2014, I think Toho announced the production of what was called Godzilla 2016 at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, and they released like that photo where it said Gojira 2016 with like his eyes.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
yeah, I do.
Um, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" And I didn't think anything of it. I just thought like, "Oh, cool! We're getting another Godzilla movie. That's awesome." And then the next year, in April 1st, 2015, they announced that the directors were going to be Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi, and that's when the tides kind of turned for me. I went from, "Oh, I can't wait to see it," to, "Oh God, I need to be there for this." Um, and I just thought, you know what? I'll shoot my shot. I'll send Toho a letter asking if I can join the production and say I'm a filmmaker, and I'll just work on set. I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. So I typed the letter in English, and then I had my mother translate it, because I can't read or write Japanese. I can only speak it. And I sent the letter. It must have been like May or something. It was like around May, I think, like uh, mid-May or early June, something like that. And I sent it, and I thought, like, it's not gonna happen. But I did my shot, and if it doesn't happen, it's fine. I'm just gonna like do low expectations, because like a studio is not gonna just randomly respond to a random letter from a fan. Like that doesn't happen
Right.
ever. So I was like, you know what, it's not happening, but you know what, I did it, and if it doesn't happen, I can at least say I sent them a letter, and I was fine with that. And then like 2-ish months go by, and then like suddenly, I was like checking my email randomly, and then I see this email, and the handle was at toho.co.jp, and in the subject header, I can't read it because it's in Japanese, but it did say Godzilla in it, and I was like, oh, uh, what is this? And I ran home and I showed my mom, like, hey, like, read this, like, what does this say? And she said, well, they want to do a interview with you about being a production assistant, and
Yo.
I was in complete shock. And then I did the interview um, in Japanese. That was the first time I've ever done like any kind of interview in a language that wasn't English. So that was kind of a nerve wracking experience. And just off the bat, they turn on the Skype call, and behind the three guys I spoke to was just a wall of storyboards for Shin Godzilla, and
Ooh.
just that alone just made me like so like euphoric in that moment. Um, and then we chatted for a bit, and they asked me questions like, can you come to Toho Studios by yourself? Do you need assistance? I'm like, no, I can learn it. I can speak the language, so we can communicate, and that's totally fine. And they said, okay, so we'll take a sec to discuss, and we'll contact you back if you got the job or not. And I said, thank you, and then the call ended, and they gave me an indication of like it'll be like maybe like 2 to 3 days that I'll get a response.
Hmm.
So the Skype call ends, and it was at night because the time difference
Right.
in Japan. So it was their morning, my like 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. Night in New York. Um, and then I was going to bed, and then I checked my phone because as you do, you check your phone before you go to sleep. And then I got another email from Toho Studios. And I was like, what is this? And it again said Godzilla in the subject header. And I showed it to my mom, and then she kind of goes cold for a second. And I was like, oh my God, what is it? And she just turns and goes like, you're in. You got in.
Nice.
And
That's
I
so
just,
Nice.
cool.
Wow.
yeah, and I just kind of sat there, like I'm dreaming, right? This is a dream. This is real. This is happening. And in the email there was a map of Toho Studios that like describe like you go here, this is the office where like we're stationed at, and da da da. And then a few weeks later I'm on my trip to Tokyo.
So you lived in Japan while you were working there, essentially.
Yes, I stayed at my aunt's place with my mom, and I stayed there from the end of July, and I left December 1st, I believe.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, so I was there for about 4 months.
Interesting. So you were there for all the live action shots and some of the. Were you just there for the live action shots, or were you also part of some of the special effects shooting?
So in the beginning, I was stationed with all the other PAs in A unit, and A unit was all in charge of filming the actors and the character beats of the story, and then B unit was the tokusatsu special effects unit.
Mm.
So I was originally placed in A unit, but then at some random point, I forget when, but at some random point, the guys were like, Yoko came all this way from New York to work on a Godzilla film. Why don't we put him in B unit with all the tokusatsu stuff so he can be near Godzilla?
Oh man.
So after that point, I was solely in the tokusatsu department. I never went to the A unit unless I just went to visit to see like what they were doing.
Mm.
But for the last about 2 months of production, like I was solely with the Toku guys,
Wow.
and like standing with Godzilla. And so like every day, like literally as I went to work, I just saw Godzilla in the studio space, just like staring off in the distance.
Right, because they initially were going to use that, let's say, like 8 foot tall animatronic for the movie.
Yeah, and he just stood in the corner of the studio, just like watching us, or like watching the wall or something. Like it was really funny.
Oh my gosh! So you got to see them do like all the puppeteering shots, all the small like building destruction scenes.
Yeah, I even have like it's so unfortunate that like I'm not technically allowed to show anyone any of this, but like I have like video footage from the set of like all the effects they did.
Oh,
I have a
Oh.
I have a bunch of like photos and videos of like what they were doing, and it sucks that like I can't like show it to people, but like I have so much like footage of like what they were doing and stuff. It's so cool.
is it like a specific NDA in your contract that you can't show anything even after the movie's been out for years?
Yeah, technically, it's Toho's property, so I'd probably have to get
Oh.
permission from them to
Oh.
show like
Okay,
Yeah,
that
that
makes
that
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd wish I can show it to people, but like we did so much cool stuff, and it was so painstaking in all the good ways. Like it really was an experience, and I think my appreciation of the Godzilla films and all Tokusatsu projects in general has really increased since then because I saw the pain and hardship it took to make these movies, and I didn't quite understand it. Like, obviously, I knew about like all the horror stories that Haruo Nakajima went through to
Mhm.
make the original Showa movies, but um, I don't think you feel it until you see it like in front of you, and seeing the hard work that everyone put in like be literally destroyed in front of you, and making sure that it's destroyed in the proper way, and if not you have to do it all
Mm.
over again. And that process of seeing all these like talented special effects geniuses at work was such a an honor to experience, and that was such a fun way to get me to appreciate these movies even more than I already did.
Man, that is just incredible. Now, one of my favorite stories that you've told before is you actually have pieces of the unused animatronic.
Oh god. Yes. Kind of like the story with the G 98 with the detailing on the skin.
Hmm.
I have so it was kind of the opposite of that story where like the Toho guys like or rather the my Tokusatsu team at the end they were like, "Hey Yoko, these are all going in the trash. Do you want it?" I'm
Oh.
like, "Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, I want like
Nice.
whatever you give me. Yes, I want it." So they gave me a Godzilla claw that
Oh.
it was cut from the movie because I remember seeing the previs of it, but I don't it didn't end up being in the film. But it was a close-up shot of Godzilla's foot that was supposed to like tear the pavement apart. Um,
Ooh.
I would have taken the whole
and
foot.
So they had this chroma key claw on his foot that was painted blue to match the blue screen, and they'd uh, tear up this piece of pavement, and they shot it. And afterwards, the guy was walking away with it, and he's like, this is gonna go in the garbage. Do you want this? I'm like, yes, absolutely, yes, I want it.
Gimme, gimme, gimme.
So I have that in my room. I also have some small little like apple boxes they made that were used in the flooding sequence when Form 2 is like crawling out of the ground.
Oh yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
So I have stuff like that. I have like a tiny iPad that was like in the office sets.
Oh,
Like
Hmm.
it's like a half an inch size iPad. It's
interesting.
yeah. And I also have some of the props where, um, the scene in towards the end where they're blowing up the buildings to fall on top of Godzilla, and there's the shot of the desks like falling out the window.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
So all those desks are like miniature tokusatsu desks. So they're populated with like tiny computers and tiny laptops and tiny like office files. And a small little detail is that the office files they have are actually tiny storyboards in the movie.
Oh, that's
Oh
so
wow,
cool.
that's a nice touch.
Yeah, so I have that. I have like a mini clipboard with like a tiny piece of paper with storyboards from the movie on it.
What a neat little Easter egg.
Nice.
Wow.
That's
Yeah, I
cool.
was like, huh, that's kind of a clever way to like to slip that in, and like you don't even see it in the film, but like it's just you see it on set, and I was like, wow, that's such a fun little idea. Um, and obviously, of course, you mentioned it. I have two bags worth of Godzilla's skin that they had these e- extra blotches of skin that um, they had as a backup if the animatronic like broke, they'd patch him up with
Right.
these
Oh,
extra
okay.
pieces. So um, at the end, when the animatronic was going back to the warehouse, this extra skin was just not um, useful anymore because as we all know, that latex rots, like
Mhm.
later. So
Yeah.
there's no um, there was no need to preserve it if it was just like leftover latex.
Hmm.
So the guy who was operating the animatronic walked over to me and he was like, "Hey, these two pieces of like extra skin, like, it's just gonna go in the garbage. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yes, I definitely want that.
It's so funny that like, oh hey, we're gonna throw this out. Do you want it? Just every time like they turn to you.
Because like I guess they knew that like obviously like this big fanboy who literally like flew halfway across the world to be here is like on set and like everyone else like doesn't really care because they worked on and also that was another thing that I loved is that all of my colleagues were like veterans of the Godzilla franchise. Like they were like, yeah, I worked on like all the Millennium movies. He worked on the Heisei ones. And he worked on some of the Showa ones, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm like standing in like Godzilla Toku royalty.
Wow.
So all these guys have seen like all these productions, so like they're like unfazed by it, as opposed to me where I'm like, oh my god, everything is so crazy. Oh my god.
Honestly, that would be me.
Yeah, no, and like I think that's a pretty fair reaction, like if you're a Godzilla fan and you're there, you'd be freaking out every moment. And as I was, so they really treated me like so sweetly, and they were just like trying to give me the best like fanboy experience I can possibly have, and they just and we got very close towards the end, and they just kept giving me stuff, and
Aww.
I'm staring at it right now in my room. It's not a prop, but a colleague of mine was like, "Hey, I have an extra prop lightsaber. Do you want it?" And
Wait, what?
Which one do you want? And I was like, "Which ones do you have?" And he listed like, "I have Anakin's, I have Darth Vader's, I have Count Dooku's, and all this other stuff." And I was like, "Do you have Obi-Wan's? Because he's my favorite character in Star Wars." And he's like, "Yeah, I got Obi-Wan's lightsaber." And he's like, "Do you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, yes, please." And it's right now staring at me in the living room. It's right here on display.
That just randomly
Oh my
a colleague was like,
gosh.
"Hey, I have lightsabers. Do you want one?"
Yeah, and it was it was really sweet because it was like production was wrapping up, and we probably wouldn't see each other, and also I'm going back to America soon, so that was like his parting gift to me. So that was really sweet. But he just gave me a lightsaber.
That is insane.
Yeah, those guys were awesome, and like I really can't thank them enough for giving me such a great time and for treating me so nicely because like obviously my Japanese skills isn't like perfect, so they have to kind of like slow things down and like explain stuff to me. So they were all very very sweet, and I can't thank them enough.
That's pretty incredible that they were so willing to give you props and pieces from the film, because now you could have that in shadow boxes on display and be like, yeah, these are actual screen use pieces.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for them, and I again like I really can't thank them for enough for everything that they did for me like on set and even off set, like just still being their friends and still talking to them. And I was just before this recording, I was watching the behind the scenes of the Jet Jaguar short.
Oh yeah, they just released that.
Yeah, they have the there's two behind the scenes clips, and the main one. I saw a lot of my former colleagues there, and I was like, "Oh my god, there you guys are!" And a few of them like messaged me like, "Hey, like I worked on the Jet Jaguar short. Like, check it out." I'm like, "Oh my god, that's awesome!" So yeah, they're really cool guys, and I really appreciate their friendship and their accommodating nature.
That's just insane. Did you also get to go to the Japanese premiere, or were you at least invited?
I was not, and I honestly that was fine because I got something slightly even more special in the end. So I on July 4th, 2016, I went to Toho to see the film for the first time. I was invited to the private like staff only screening.
Oh.
Wow.
3 weeks before it came out.
Hmm.
And Higuchi was there, and Ano was there, and yeah, it was crazy. And I wept like a baby because I saw my name in the end credits. I just like I could not control my like tear ducts, which is like it was like Niagara Falls was coming out of my eyes.
I mean, yeah, that's a proud moment. Like, I worked on a film, and I see my name credited in the end credits.
Yeah, and another thing that I'll tie it back to the first story that I said about Ghidra is that my name pops up in the Ghidra theme.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's an amazing full circle moment.
yeah, and I was like, "How did you guys know?" And like after the movie ended, I was like, "How did you know?" And they were like, "I don't. That was a pure coincidence." But yeah, that was such a wild experience, and just seeing the movie at Toho Studios and with my fellow colleagues, I haven't seen in a few months because um, after December I went back home to New York, and then I went back to Japan. So it was kind of like a reunion, sort of. And then I went to the Shirogumi, the visual effects house that did a lot of the VFX for Shin Godzilla. I went to their wrap party as well.
Ooh.
Um, so that was fun, and Ano gave a little speech, and he hates parties, but he showed up to this one. So that was fun. And then right after the red carpet premiere in Shinjuku, my colleagues hit me up and they were like, "Hey, we're doing the IMAX screen test and the 4DX test to make sure that it all looks good and everything. 2 days before its like midnight premiere, and it was going to be like after hours, like after the movie theater is closed, and it
Wow.
was like staff only, and Higuchi was there in the audience, and we all like sat down to watch it together in IMAX, like privately." With Shinji Higuchi and my Toku staff members. So that was also like really, really special.
Wow, that's insane. So, how does an IMAX and 4DX test work?
Basically, they would just review it and make sure like it all looks fine. Like if the resolution quality is fine and if the playback, the audio is fine. That way, there's no mistakes when it like opens at midnight to the first audience. They just want to like really like double check and make sure that like everything is fine, basically.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. One last round of questions before we wrap up. So recently, it was Godzilla Fest in Japan, and for those of us that couldn't make it to Japan, like a few of our friends, they did the live stream. Did you check out that live stream? Now, since they clearly didn't put any English subtitles, how much of that were you able to understand? Given a Japan, you can speak and hear it, but you can't write it.
Yeah, the live stream. Obviously, it was really late in the day, so I fell asleep shortly after the Megalon um, short film, the CGI one.
Hmm.
But I understood um, everything that they said, basically.
Yeah, it's unfortunately sounds like there was a lot of audio technical problems with that live stream.
Yeah, I was like, "What is going on, guys? Like, what's happening here?" And like, I felt bad because it's like, what can you do? It's already live. Like, you can't like go back and fix the audio. But yeah, that was unfortunate. But still good fest though, I think.
Oh yeah, both the Megalon and Jet Jaguar shorts were just phenomenal.
Yeah, awesome. Like, shout out to the filmmakers behind both projects because like, damn, that was good. Like, they were cooking with those two shorts.
I keep saying like the short films just get more and more ambitious the longer this fest goes on.
Yeah, the Megalon one was surprising to me. I was very like, oh wow, they um I guess Godzilla Jr. has like an atomic punch
Yeah,
ability now. I was like, wow, that's new. I haven't seen that before. And they somehow like, the madmen that they are put in the drop kick.
I
I was
was
like,
like, I
yes.
thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It can't be Megalon without a drop kick. Come
Oh
on,
yeah.
guys. Like, yeah, so that was awesome. And the Jet Jaguar short, like, what can I say? Like, like we're all Godzilla fans here. Like, seeing suits is the greatest thing.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's so satisfying.
Now, unfortunately, that short suffered from both the audio and the visual quality of the stream,
Yeah, thankfully, they uploaded the short today, actually, on YouTube in
which was a
full quality.
surprising move since the Gigan short is still hidden in last year's live stream.
Yeah, it's interesting though because like this Jet Jaguar one, I think it's gonna disappear on November
14th, I think.
14. Yeah, 14. Yeah, there we go. So at least it'll be there for 2 weeks. But damn, like I kind of wish these were up like just forever. Like I wish people could have access to like see like real tokusatsu, because like as much as I love Shin Godzilla and as much as I'm sure Godzilla minus one looks fantastic, everyone is saying is fantastic, and I don't doubt them for 1 second because it's Yamazaki.
Hmm.
But there is something about like seeing the suits, man, that really speaks to like a primal instinct in my brain, because I grew up like seeing that, and I kind of wish Toho will let them keep those up so that like younger generations especially can like experience Toku, like modern Toku,
Hmm.
in a new way. But it's a step in the right direction though,
Oh
that we're
yeah.
still having the suits like active and everything.
It's so much better to see something practically in front of the camera than having to go in and create something digital later.
No, absolutely. I'm 100% on that camp, and like, and no disrespect to CGI, because obviously like that it takes like a village to make something in CGI. So obviously, like props to anyone who works in visual effects, and like obviously the CGI animated Megalon short is like awesome in how it's animated and how it's constructed. But uh, I think Tokusatsu, especially, that style of filmmaking is very much like meant to be in camera, practical, and it's good that like people like Yamazaki and Ano, like even though they're technically straying far from tradition, making Godzilla full CG, they're still honoring the Toku like style of how it's shot, how it's composed together, how the framing of putting Godzilla next to buildings is intact, and also using as much practical effects as they possibly can to merge the modern and old school techniques. So uh, I think they're doing a great job at keeping Toku alive, but also evolving it for perhaps like the new uninitiated audience.
Hmm. I cannot wait for minus one. The early buzz is saying it's phenomenal, and I hate that we have to wait a month. I wish it was only a week away for us here in America.
I can't wait. Like I am so ready for that, dude. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it is. Well, Godzilla Day has come and gone once again, and next year is the 70th anniversary of the King, so I'm very excited to see what Toho is going to pull out next year. I want to thank you, Yoko, for joining us today and giving us your insight on Tokusatsu and on Shin Godzilla. So that's some amazing stuff you shared with us today.
Thank you. I always love telling the story because it's such a kind of like a strange one. Like it's very unexpected, as I said before, and I just love sharing this experience with a lot of other Godzilla fans, because like I think just it's rare to speak with somebody who was like on set of one of these movies and also who speaks English.
Hmm.
So I love having the opportunity to give like the first look, like exclusive look, to all the fans out there like myself, because like I didn't have this access when I was a kid trying to learn about Godzilla movies, because like um, everything is in Japanese. So I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to share this story, and grateful to you for allowing me to tell the story and giving me a platform to share this experience. So I'm very thankful for you for letting me share this with you guys.
Absolutely, Yoko. For those wanting to check Yoko out, he is on all the social medias at Resistant Pictures. His YouTube channel holds some of his short films, which are very nice, by the way.
Thank you.
So yes, go check out Yoko at Resistant Pictures on social media. He has some really nice stuff going out there. But for now, this is Danny,
Sabrina.
Vinny.
Joe. Charles.
and this has been the Petty Cash Podcast. And remember, slow down, chew your food, and enjoy Godzilla.